Hello there, my name's Tim Walter. I'm a house healer and an alternative life coach. And today I want to talk about this idea about co-creating our reality. The fact that I believe, as a lot of people do, that all 7.5 billion souls on this planet assist and co-create amongst ourselves, and we do so in association with the management upstairs and indeed with the earth itself. And earth energy, that thing that we can detect through dowsing, I believe is part of the quantum field, the 0 point field, and hence that's why I believe it is so important in creating our future. A week ago or so I was asked by a subscriber, that was Benjamin plus 10 Lisa, if I could talk a little bit more about the 0 point field, that's the quantum field of existence from which everything is built, and earth energy, and the way that I believe we can manifest everything that we experience in our day-to-day realities from these things. And in fact, to me, of course, earth energy, the earth energy that I ask you to look for when you look for the power center in your home, and the 0 point field are intimately connected. It's almost as though they are one and the same thing. Obviously, in scientific terms, they wouldn't go that far. But the best way, I think, to explain it is by actually looking at the way water flows through a landscape and the way that water is structured. The first thing to realize, of course, is that when I ask you to find these power centers in your home, I'm not asking you to find something that just sits in isolation. These power centers, these earth energy power centers, sit within the overall earth energy within the home and which pervades everywhere. So it's rather like looking at the ripples and the vortices, the swirls, the movements of the water within the water itself. So where you might see a vortices or a swirling part of the water, you could say that that was like the power center that you're finding in your home. It's part of the wider environment in which it sits. So when we talk about the 0 point field, we're referring to a quantum field of existence that permeates absolutely everything at the smallest possible scale of existence. That is, even smaller than the atomic structures. So this is the field of existence that scientists at places like the CERN laboratory in Switzerland are examining to try and find out how many particles there are within the 0 point field from which everything is created. Now, there's no question at all in science's mind that everything is created from the 0 point field. And there's no question either that one of the most popular theories within quantum science is that the role of the observer collapses what is a potential experience into the experience that is actually held. So in other words, in quantum physics, things are held within a state of either being a wave or a particle. And as they are observed, they collapse in a certain way into a particle structure made from particles, which means they become solid. Up until that point of collapse, they are always in a state of potential. And the closer time comes to that point of collapse, then it goes from potential, from possibility to potential to probability, and then actuality. Here on Earth, therefore, the concept of time appears to be quite significant because we move in that arrow of time from possibility, the vague awareness of all possible outcomes, to an actual outcome, the one that we experience. In spiritual terms, of course, we tend to regard time as being non-existent. But here on Earth, of course, we do abide by the laws of time because that's what we experience or seem to experience on a day-to-day basis. What seems to also occur, if we look at it from a philosophical and spiritual point of view, is that actually creation, the awareness and experience of life occurs on a constantly rolling motion of going from possibility to probability to actuality. And therefore we are creating on that constant rhythm, constant cycle of creation. Everybody, every being is constantly creating. Now, science says that the most prominent scientific theory says that it needs an observer to collapse the wave function into actuality. There is some debate as to whether it's human observation, and if it isn't human, then therefore what observation is it? Which of course brings into the equation the possibility of God, but science can't put God into its equations. The latest news from science says that there appears to be a sound that is evident within the quantum structure, and they're currently working on trying to detect that sound and therefore identify and see whether in fact it's not an observable collapse that causes the creation of reality, but actually a random structure. Now personally, obviously I'm not a quantum scientist, but personally I believe there's an element of randomness, even though I also believe that there's a structured observation within it too. Now if we look at Earth energy in the same way as we've just looked at the quantum field of existence, then what do we know about Earth energy? Well, for a start, we know it's not a very good label, but let's ignore that. It's Earth energy. We know that we can find lines within Earth energy. We know that those have existed for eons, and we know that humanity has been aware of those lines for eons too. We know that Earth energy responds to our thoughts, because we know from dowsing and finding the power centres either at a sacred site or in our homes or anywhere, even in a landscape like this, we know that it responds to human thought. So therefore, what's that if not observation? That's one link, and that to me is the most significant link. If dowsing was accepted by the scientific community, then it would be very easy to actually prove and to have experimental practice that proved that we are connected to the Earth energy in that sense, in the same way as they are theorizing that we are connected to the quantum field, to the 0-point field. I think the thing to take away from this little program really is to think about the concept of Earth energy a little bit differently. Think about yourself as actually swimming through Earth energy. So when we find a line, any kind of line that we label as Earth energy, it's like one of these ripples in the water. It's like an undulation within the Earth energy. It's like a focus of Earth energy. It's like a focus of water, an undulation within the water. The fact that we can manipulate Earth energy with our thoughts and with our hearts is the significant thing. And as I said all along in this program, science is already well along the path to understanding that we have this intricate connection to the 0-point field. We know in spiritual terms that we can play this game with the management and our guides, and we can ask for signs and signals, even if it's just a white feather to appear. If we've asked for something, we ask for a sign that it will be so, or we ask for a sign that we're thinking correctly along a particular line of thought. Now you know when there's a sign that's deliberately for you because it jumps out at you. It can be no mistake. And there are various little anecdotes that I can tell about instances where it's been hilarious, the responses that have come back. And what I found was that I could get that manifesting process down to 2 or 3 minutes. When I started, it was a good 20 minutes or so before I used to get any response, but soon it came down to 2 minutes. But this is one of the things that convinced me that we actually have this incredible relationship with our actual tangible reality. Now that is not to say that we can just simply sit in a chair and manifest whatever we want to. We can't just simply sit there and create it. But there's loads of information out there on the internet about the ways to create your reality. And of course, when I'm doing life coaching work with people, that's partly what I'm working with. And when we're mentoring, we're looking at all of that sort of stuff. And indeed, the house healing itself is part of that, changing the focus on creating reality and the way we live our lives, and learning a little bit more about the way that we actually can influence everything around us. It doesn't have to be labelled as spiritual. A lot of this is the way that we exhibit our cognitive bias, the way that we see life generally, and therefore the way that our brain picks up information from what is around us. But there is, to me, definitely a spiritual aspect to it too. So I hope that's helped a little bit. The main takeaway from this really is just think about the fact that you live within a sea of Earth energy, and that Earth energy is either actually the 0-point field, or it's so close to it that we may as well consider it 0-point field. It's not scientific, but it is certainly a way to change your relationship with everything around you. So until next time, take care.